Welcome to the Lifeforge podcast. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Hope you guys enjoyed your Superbowl, enjoyed your whatever. It's Valentine's Day, the night of, which means we are with each other talking about Arena. Truly the worst way to spend the night. But this is the way that we spend it. And we finally have something to talk about for the Arena. So you guys don't have to hear about me. Just talk about BGs in a way that I'm probably way underqualified to talk about. So look, we have the mini set coming up. We will have arena changes. If you were like, whoa, Merps, there hasn't been any changes for the longest time, that's because TN, aka the button, left and Blizzard hasn't been able to change anything. Or maybe they have been able to change something, but they looked at it and they're like, TN was the only person to understand it, so we are not going to touch a thing. It is like a time bomb right there. It's like, if we touch it, it might go bad, and we don't know exactly how everything works. So they haven't touched it. But...
And they're not going to touch it.
They're not going to touch it.
This is a rotation that's about to happen. Tomorrow, actually. This is Monday night when we're recording this. And as of Tuesday, at some point, all the cards are going to be in. So you get a new mini set and you get a rotation. And it's a big rotation. Arena will not be the same. Do you have the exact sets for the rotation? I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it rotates tomorrow, we will have Core, obviously. FAV, Fractured and Alterac Valley. We will have the set that we're about to talk about, Onyxia's Lair, the mini set. And then we will have One Night in Karazhan, Blackrock Mountain, Blackrock Mountain, Journey to Ungoro, Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, and of course, Descent of Dragons. You can't have a dragon-themed mini set and not bring back the dragon set. So that's what they're going with, and then Blackrock Mountain was also a tiny bit dragon focused. This was when like having 2 cards in a, very small little blip of an expansion was like, oh, they're tossing in some dragon synergies, and as we can see, it really shows its age. But that's the rotation. We can talk a little bit about what that means, but I think a lot of people are most excited to figure out, what cards are entering. And if you're thinking, is the meta going to be significantly different? That depends on what you were annoyed at before. If you're annoyed at Snowfall Guardian, I'm sorry. If you were annoyed at Wild Paw, I'm sorry. Those
Shamans will be fine.
Those cards are still going to terrorize you a little bit. So just know that.
Yeah, and those sets are all from Alterac Valley. That's why they're still staying in. Everything else is going. So we're not even going to talk about what cards are leaving, because everything's leaving. The only things staying are the ones that are in core, and you should know those by now because they never leave. And Alterac Valley, which is the latest set, which you should also know because they kind of just got added. All the honorable kill stuff, the big stuff you're annoyed at, the Paladin, big bombs, the hunter weapon, the Shaman freeze package, that's all there. What is coming in? Merps listed off the bunches of sets, but you don't really have to know any of them because they're all pretty pointless. All you have to know is old sets are coming in, which means they're bad. And you're going to get a couple of cards that are playable, but mostly it's going to be a lot of trash. And the average deck quality is going to drop by a lot. Because remember, this new set is not a real set. It's a mini set. There's only 60-something cards, not 130-something cards. So what you're going to have are 2 real sets in Alterac and Onyxia's Lair. In Alterac and Descent of Dragons, which was really, that was like the start of the big power creep, right? And the core set came right after that. So you have Descent of Dragons, which is coming in, and we'll talk about a little bit of about that. And then you have Alterac cards still staying, and the rest is more or less trash. 35 cards in the mini set, not 60, not 60 something. I think I'm thinking of like doubles and stuff that you buy. The Blizzard advertising is getting to me. It's like, get 60 something cards. I'm like, oh yeah, no, okay.
You can get all golden cards. You can now buy the entire set.
It's like $70 or something, right? $60. It was some insane amount.
Yes, you can get an all golden set for $70. Sorry, $69.99. Gotta put that penny in.
Yeah. So the only real set that comes in that's going to have any impact is Descent of Dragons, and it is going to have a huge impact because of one card. I mean, not just one card, but one card is going to have the same exact large impact that it had before, and that is Twin Tyrant. So you guys remember that Twin Tyrant was around for like an entire year before they took it out of the rotation. And since it's been out of the rotation, it hasn't come back. So we've all been living a Twin Tyrant free life for almost an entire year now. And a lot of power creep has happened since then. So you might think, hey, maybe Twin Tyrant's not so bad. So first things first, before we get to Onyxia's Lair cards, Twin Tyrant is still terribly, awfully, ridiculously bad for a neutral common. It is still A tier. And if you follow along with our card rating system, you will know that cards that are A tier, we do not think belong in the arena at all. In neutrals, they're like okay for class cards, but not okay for neutral cards. And the current boogeyman in the arena that is a common neutral is Knight Captain, and Knight Captain is a B+, not an A. Now, Twin Tyrant's a low A. It's not like a high A. It's definitely not an A+, but still, Twin Tyrant is going to come in, and even if this was not a dragon-focused set, it would be better than Knight Captain. The fact that this is going to be a dragon-focused rotation makes it even more ridiculous, and depending on what the offering odds are, which nobody knows because I don't know what Blizzard's doing, the button's broken, who knows, it may be really, really bad, or it may be just worse than Knight Captain levels of bad. But either way, that's not a good thing. I think a lot of people wanted Knight Captain to be banned. We were one of the, I don't know about few, but I think it was a pretty even divide of people who wanted Knight Captain banned and people like us who were like, Knight Captain's probably the edge of what could be okay in Arena for a neutral common. The Twin Tyrant is not. That's just the point I want to make. Twin Tyrant is not okay.
Yeah, so we haven't seen, and I think it's important when we talk about like power creep, what that really means. A lot of the power creep, as you see, and especially the most egregious power creep throughout the years, has been what has happened to extremely large cards. For many, many years, we had trash big cards. They were actually punished for being big, which made no sense back then. Mm-hmm. And these days, you see an incredible benefit for being able to play a big card. I mean, just look at Box of Yogg-Saron, right? And you just look at these big minions, they all have to do something. They all have to do something huge. So that's where the biggest amount of power creep has been. And so if you look at Twin Tyrant, it's just like, it still fits. You're just kind of remembering all of the Ysseras and the Ibises, and that's fine.
And they're still there.
And they're still there, right? But they're not in every single game, first of all. And second of all, if you look at a lot of these averages of sets, they're not super dramatically shifting. It's just easy for you to remember. It's like, God, Watchtower really sucked when it was in the game and it was a neutral, and completely agree with you, right? And there are just lots of things that raise the ceiling and have kept raising the ceiling of what you think is acceptable for the arena, whether it's from a class card or whether it's from neutrals, and it's like neutral commons, neutral rares, right? So it's easy to remember that. It's just like you remember the best and the worst of basically everything in life. But the middle portion, stuff has gotten more powerful, but it's not a complete, total seismic shift in sort of a lot of these middle cards. It's these giant swings, and that's another problem we can talk about. But it's these giant swings from these specific cards that are the real issue here. So Twin Tyrant is still good. I mean, it beats up like a lot of boards.
It's still
going
broken.
into turn 8.
It's not just good. It is broken. It is still broken. And I mean, you guys will see once it comes back. You'll have all of your PTSD come back and be like, "Oh, I remember why I quit Arena. Why am I back?" Because this card does not belong in the arena, and it never has. And Blizzard lived with it for a year. I don't think they're going to ban it now, but it is the best card that is a common neutral that has ever been published in arena and not been banned, and that's still true. I just like the focus. As long as everybody is kind of on with that expectation going in, I think you'll be a little less frustrated at this upcoming meta because you just expect it. Remember, you've lived with this for like an entire year. More than a year, actually. Descent of Dragons stayed in the meta for more than a year. Anyway, let's okay. Before we go on to the Onyxia's Lair cards, I want to set the stage for our rating system. Just a really quick overview for those who are new or those who, have forgotten since the last time we reviewed for Alterac. We've been using this system since Barons. So Barons, United in Stormwind, Mines, Alterac, and now Onyxia's Lair. And it has... Is this Baron? Yeah. And it basically is a lettering system from F being the worst to S tier being the best. So it's F, D, C, B, A, and S. There are very few S tier cards. The F cards are very obvious. They do more or less nothing. And almost everything is going to be between D and B. And we have pluses, but we don't have minuses. So the key line to remember is right between D and C. I think we call it a D+, but it's really right between D+ and C, is Yeti. That is the line. So Yeti on our grading system would be like a 69 or a 70. And B is good. So a lot of cards get put into B. The kind of feeling that you get in B should be, oh, I'm happy to take this card. This card could potentially win me some games. This card is very powerful. B tier cards used to be the best cards ever printed for a very long time in Hearthstone's life cycle. Now we have S tier cards, but B was the initial top line, essentially, B and B+.
Yep. B, the two examples I think we use pretty commonly are like Stoneskin Basilisk and Wrapped Golem. Like those are two very solid ones, and when you think back, it's like when you just saw those cards, right? It's like, oh shoot, neutrals could be this good, kind of feeling. And are they still good? Yeah, and they still win some games. Wrapped Golem still wins you some games. Basilisk still wins you some games, but not to the degree that they used to. And when you compare them with other stuff, like you'll look at a Wrapped Golem and you'll look at a Night Captain, and it does depend on your deck, but you're like, oh wait, I can get a Night Captain here instead. So that's sort of where we're at here. But yeah, B used to be the very, very high end. So if you think back to like 2017, 2018, those two cards I just named were at, if they weren't at the top, near the top of people's like, oh, what are the best neutrals? Yep. Excluding legendaries, right? What are the best neutrals in the game? Those would be it.
Yep. A tier cards are cards that we generally think should not be neutral cards at all, or at least neutral non-legendary. And some class cards are A cards, and they're okay. Nowadays, I feel like half the class cards are A tier cards, but it's okay as a class card because you want classes to have flavor. You want, classes to do classy things. But when A tier cards exist in Hearthstone as a neutral card in Arena, things get very stale very quickly. All games devolve into the same thing, and for the most part, they honestly actually get banned. the low A cards may not get banned, but anything that's like a high tier A card, A pluses generally get banned. S tiers always get banned. We have some low A's that stay around, right? Like this Twin Tyrant's not the only one that is low A that stays around. And S tier is just broken. It kind of doesn't matter whether it's a class card or not. Like, maybe it's okay to have class cards that are broken because your opponent can just play it now and then, and you just throw your hands up and go, well, I guess I lose, you know, that's fine. Like, Caverns is an S tier card. To give an example, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza is an S tier card. Ysera is an S tier card. And lately, we've started getting S plus tier cards. It's not that we never had S plus tier cards before, but there used to be one every like year, I want to say, and now we're getting multiples every set. And we'll kick off with the S plus tier card of this set. But in coming back, there is a S plus tier card. There may be more because we haven't done these ratings for all the cards historically. We only started in Barons. But I did a couple of dragons just to get the flavor and kind of set the tone for myself before we started rating the Onyxia's Lair cards. So Primordial Explorer actually came out to be an S plus tier card. And that is the hunter. That's the hunter dragon. That's a cobra. That's the 3/2 cobra. That is a dragon itself, and then also discovers a dragon.
2/3.
Sorry, yeah, 2/3, like an emperor cobra, and it also discovers a dragon. That was always absurdly insane. It like single-handedly turns hunter into a control class because you just pumps a couple of those out and they generate really big dragons. So yeah, Primordial Explorer, even better than Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. And obviously you hear people complain about it, but less people complain about it because only hunters had it, right? That's the difference between a class card and a neutral card. Everybody complained about Dragon Queen Alexstrasza.
Also, for those of you guys who may have not kept up with the buffs and the nerfs, if you guys remember, here's how DQA initially launched. It was 9 mana. It gave you 2 dragons at that both cost 0, and you could still get DQA from it, which was really stupid. And then they nerfed it such that you can't get DQA from it, and then they further nerfed it such that the 2 dragons that you get cost 1 mana. Now, the DQA that is coming back, you can't get further DQAs from it. That would, obviously make sense. But we are back to 0 mana. Mm-hmm. So you play DQA on turn 9, they no longer cost 1. They cost 0. That's a huge tempo swing, because before it was like a turn 10 play, and you play whichever one was the more impactful one, and you just get a cheaper one for the next turn. Now, on turn 9, you get to play both of them. And as you will see, and as you have seen, it's like even the bad hits, something like an evasive Draconid or something, is still pretty good. You just get a pile of stats, and then it'll be like an evasive Draconid, which, if you don't remember, is a 7 mana 7/7, and it can't be targeted.
Taunt.
With taunt. And if you have that along with another thing with initiative or with more value or something, hey, that's pretty great.
And Dragon Queen Alexstrasza is 8/8 itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of stats. So going down, just to give you mentally have you set out this grading scale we have. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza is an S, Twin Tyrant's an A, Evasive Worm, if you remember, that's the 5/3 elusive rush dragon for I believe it's 6 mana. Evasive Worm is a B, and Evasive Draconid, like Merp said, the 7/7 taunt elusive minion that can't be targeted, that is a C. Primordial Drake, I just did this for the hell of it because it was a dragon and I hate this card. Primordial Drake is a B right now. So that used to be like one of the most insane cards you can actually draft. And it's a B. And that's Un'Goro. Un'Goro wasn't even that early. So this just shows you the power creep that's happening here. Okay. Let's go on to the mini set, Onyxia's Lair. Let's see if I can set this up correctly. There we go. First card that we are reviewing for Onyxia's Lair is Onyxia herself. Raid Boss Onyxia. It's a legendary neutral minion. 10 mana, 8/8 dragon. Rush. Immune while you control a Whelp. Battle Cry. Summon 6/2/1 Whelps with Rush.
So it's been confirmed by Blizzard that Whelps, the definition of a Whelp is very broad. What this means is, if you're thinking of a Whelp, you immediately think of, the 2/1 Whelps that give it Rush. No, the normal Dragon Whelps, there's other Dragon Whelp tokens also count. Big ol' Whelp, remember 5 mana 5/5 that draws you a card.
Really?
That counts because
it's a Whelp. Counts.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Big ol' Whelp counts.
Oh my God.
Mechanical Whelp also counts. Like you see where I'm going with this. Anything that is a Whelp or is called a Whelp is a Whelp. And you might be thinking, well, that's obvious, but you're like, I don't know why they needed this synergy. You can definitely have big ol' Whelps in your hand, or
it's gonna be a Whelp meta.
It could be a Whelp meta, but
so
yeah, I don't know why they needed to program that in as well.
In case you have trouble mentally adding up all the stats, because there's a lot of them. This is a maximum of 12 attack from the Whelps that have initiative. Also 6 health, but if they hit anything, they die. And then an 8/8 that also has Rush with initiative. So that's 20 attack with initiative. And 6 health. Divided into the 1/1s, a immunity on your 8/8, and then the 8 health for your 8/8. It's like 15-20 mana's worth of stats in one thing. It's an S+ tier card. By the way, we're going to go in order from the top to the bottom, in terms of how powerful these cards are. So we're starting with the S+ tier card. It's S+ tier. I don't know what else to say. I'm going to try to go back and see what else we put S+ tier, but it's stuff like I think in the last set, Bloodseeker we had as S+, Templar Captain was S+, even Caverns was S. S+ is really hard to reach. Ysera is S, not S+, by the way. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, the current version, the one where you can't discover itself but can discover all the other dragons, and it costs 0 to play it. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza is S. None of them are S+. This is so good.
The only problem with DQA is you could bust sometimes.
And it only works if you don't have duplicates in your deck.
Right. And by bust I mean you don't get the amazing battle cries. It's you only get 20 mana's worth of stats on the board, but they don't give you more cards, or they don't rush, or they don't do all of this stuff, so that's the reason why DQA is not an S+. And yes, there is also the restriction, right? The restriction counts for a lot. It's just we can talk about how good Zephrys is, and it obviously is amazing, but yeah, there's a restriction to it. This card is really dumb because a lot of times as well, it's you don't use up all the Whelps, and maybe you have 3 Whelps left over, and you force your opponent on turn 12 to have another Bonker Sergeant. You force them to have just another source of multiple points of damage. Otherwise, this thing is immune. It's not just immune while attacking while you control a Whelp. I'm looking at chat at the same time. But damn, I wish it said that.
We should start calling Merps Whelps from now on.
Yeah. Look, if it's always immune while I'm playing with it, maybe I will go back to playing the arena. Hell,
maybe the definition is so expansive, you should just change your BattleNet name to Whelp, and then it'll just be immune.
Oh shit, yeah. And then if your opponent says Whelp when you play this, it's Whelp, the game is over. Well, that counts too. We should just fold all those things in. But it's really stupid because a good number of times you don't use up all the Whelps. So you have multiple Whelps still. You're not going to have all 6, but you have some, 3 left over. And you force them to kill it. and if they don't kill all 3 Whelps and then deal with this, well, that sucks. Like, 10 mana cards are okay. We've always said, there's a price to be had for 10 mana cards being 10 mana, that they can't be played earlier. There is that cost. What Blizzard has done exponentially throughout the years is increase the impact of 10 mana cards, while at the same time printing so many cards that make it so easy for you to get to 10 mana. Really good removals. A lot of wonky kind of like stat lines. Just really, really taken away kind of like power from the early game and the early drops and replaced it with stuff like, draw, right? So instead of tempo oriented early drops, it'll be something like a Mana Feeder Panthera, in which it's like, oh, hey, this is great late game applicability. Like, I hero power, and then I drop it, and then I draw a card, like a 2 mana 2/3 that draws a card. That's insanely good. And then, of course, you could play it early on, and a lot of times you have to. But that's what Blizzard has been doing. So they take away from the early game, they add to the power of the late game, and they add so many tools for you to get there. And this is what we get.
This is bad for the game. Not just because if someone drafts it, this is bad. But as you may remember, all the explorers are coming back, and they're all really good. One is a S plus tier, 2 of them are A tiers, and 1 is a B plus tier. And all of them can discover dragons, and there are other ways to discover dragons too. There's just gonna be a lot of these raid boss Onyxias floating around. And pretty much game over if your opponent plays it. Or if you play it.
I was talking to chat earlier, and just play your own afterwards.
You gotta.
So they have 3 Whelps, and then you summon your own Onyxia. You kill off their 3 Whelps with your, 3 of your 6 Whelps, and then your immune 8/8 goes into their no longer immune 8/8. You guys see how easy it is? Yeah. I just solved the meta.
Collins was in chat, and he was very insistent on this. Second. You never play Raid Boss Onyxia first. The only time to play Raid Boss Onyxia is after your opponent plays their Raid Boss Onyxia. That's not exactly a joke. You may want to play it to, establish dominance, but depending on how many dragon generators there are and what your opponent has, already done, for example, if your opponent already generated a dragon or 2 and they've done that and haven't played those dragons yet, especially if they're discovered, and you have a Raid Boss Onyxia, don't play your Raid Boss Onyxia. You're going to lose if you do. Because you just gotta think, my opponent has a Raid Boss Onyxia, or my opponent has an Alex DQA. My opponent's gonna have something that I need to swing back, and Raid Boss Onyxia is a huge swing. 20 damage worth of initiative.
For those of you guys who have played in the DoD meta, you've had this little mind game set up before, but it was with Deathwing before. You had it with Deathwing before in the late stage of the game. You see somebody just holding on to this one dragon for a long time, and then they're trying to see a good situation, and then now it could be Deathwing, it could be Onyxia, but you gotta just think it's okay, they have this one card, they're not using, they're trying to extract some sort of value out of it. How can I best play around it? This is just stuff you have to consider, because if you look at all of the dragons returning, if you look at all the discover options that we have today, and all the stuff that's coming back in DoD, and DoD just wanted you to get dragons in so many ways. This is going to be important. There's just tons and tons of dragons floating around. It was actually something I tweeted about this weekend. I think Blizzard is going to come to a point where they have to really address something. As in, they don't have to address it, they can let it go, but it'll come to a head, and that is the problem of discovers. Blizzard has banned stuff before. We just saw them ban basically A-bomb, right? Lieutenant, A-bomb lieutenant.
Yep.
And yet you still see A-bombs through Glaciate. And that's kind of okay. Look, it'll make some people mad. I know one person that it makes very mad. But it's about a quarter chance in one class out of one card.
And Glaciate's not a good card otherwise.
Yeah. It's kind of forgettable. We've had other instances in which a card is banned, you can still discover it, and it was more of an annoyance than a meta changer. This is really bad. It's going to be really bad. There are way too many ways to discover dragons. And the reason I bring this up is because Zeddy was saying, hey, I play a decent amount of Arena. It seems like Raid Boss Onyxia is going to be incredibly toxic. Maybe it needs to be banned before it ever even touches Arena Daylight. And Cora came in and she was like, yeah, this card is problematic. And I believe it was Gallon. And if you don't know, Cora and Gallon are both on the Hearthstone team. They're like, yeah, this is something that we might need to really look at carefully. And then Zeddy continued the conversation by saying, we can't just end it there. It's one thing to ban it. And historically, after you've banned it, you haven't taken it away from the discover pool.
If you just remember from Dragons, the vast majority of DQAs you ever saw were not coming from someone playing DQA out of their deck.
Right. So if you look at Raid Boss Onyxia, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, the Yseras that you're going to face, the Twin Tyrant, most of them, by far the majority of them, will be discovered. So it's to the point where if you tell me, Merps, would you be okay with drafted Onyxias, but you just can't discover? I'm like, sure. You're just not going to see that many. Then you just won't. It's like if we just see drafted Yseras, drafted Onyxias, but you can never discover those, truly making them legendary units, right?
Yep.
Truly making them legendary, and then you're at 11 wins and you see a Raid Boss Onyxia that your opponent drops, you're like, whoa, that's like I haven't seen that one. It's like, okay, yeah, I understand why you reached 11 wins. It's like, that's a huge bomb. I get it. That sucks for me, but wow, you don't see that too often. Rather than your 1-2 opponent spamming discovers and killing you over and over again with you survive the first Ysera plus all of the generated cards, and then they drop the Raid Boss Onyxia on you. It's a completely different feeling because the rate that you see these game-ending, incredible value plus initiative dragons, it's a world of difference. So I think the expansion is going to be pretty fun at the beginning. I'm going to play it for quite a few reasons, but this is the one instance where we are going to look at this pretty quickly and be like, Discover is a problem. And the worst part about it is you look at something like Raid Boss Onyxia, and you're just like, well, okay, so is this going to see play in Constructed? What's going to happen? I've dug around a little bit. I am not a Constructed pro. And of course, this is just me looking at this mini set from the Reddit overall consensus, just seeing how some very good Constructed players are talking about it as well. And the consensus is sort of well, this is pretty underwhelming for a mini set. And it just seems like Constructed is just well, this doesn't really change anything. Maybe there's a couple of cards here and there. But for Arena, we're just holy shit, this is seismic. This is so huge with the rotation and with this card and with other cards as well. In a very negative way, right? So I'm looking at this mini set, and first of all, Constructed players could be wrong. This could be game-changing. I have no idea, right? I am just taking their word, and the community, has definitely been wrong before. So I don't know. But it just seems like there is not too much fanfare or too much smoke on the Constructed side. And meanwhile, here on the Arena side, we're all kind of just really worried about what's going to happen. Because I think that the discover mechanic with these dragons is going to push Arena to a really, really bad spot.
Yep. Yep. And even without a like, we're just talking about all this in the context of Raid Boss and Onyxia because that's the new card coming in. But these discovers are going to bring, and Alexstrasza is also coming in, like a Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, and that's a problematic S tier neutral card. But Ysera still exists, and nobody likes Ysera. And now you're going to have a bunch of common class cards that are going to discover Ysera, Dragon Queen, Alexstrasza, Raid Boss, and Onyxia. You're like, it's going to be hard to miss. Let's put it this way. So if you're looking for what classes are going to be good, you can literally just go down the list. Like Primordial Explorer, Hunter, gonna be good. Emerald Explorer, Druid, gonna be good. Bronze Explorer, what is that? Paladin, gonna be good. Azure Explorer, Mage, and it's gonna be a little swingy, but still probably good. Priest can discover dragons. I think in Descent of Dragons they have dragon discover cards. I'm not 100% sure. But basically anybody that has a discover dragon card that you can find. That's going to be problematic. The warrior one is thankfully not in, I believe. And if I'm wrong about that, holy crap, this is going to be a terrible meta. Because that one gets you too. This is just... the worst part about it is that they can't fix it. Quickly, at least. Because they haven't messed with the discover pools yet. So if they are going to fix it, they're going to have to actually put resources into the arena. It's not like they make a decision and it gets done. It's going to be, there's going to be testing, like blah, blah, blah. It's going to be a few weeks. And that's if they decide to do anything with the discover pools. So this is guaranteed to be a bad meta, no matter what they ban. If they don't ban Twin Tyrant, it's going to be bad pretty quickly right off the bat. But it's also entirely possible that the Dragon Discovery is just so off the chain, like, that none of the other stuff even matters. And then you're just literally fighting Onyxia with Onyxia, or else you can't get past 6-7 wins. It's an absolutely terrible card. And banning it from Arena will not solve even 25% of the problem. Alright, let's look at the next card on our list. So this is S plus tier. The next card is S tier, and it is a class card. We're just going from top to bottom, best cards to worst cards. We're not going by class. This is a common Warlock card. It is Spawn of Deathwing. Spawn of Deathwing is a 5-mana 6/6 dragon. Battle Cry. Destroy a random enemy minion. Like a deadly shot. So it's already 1 attack or health, however you want to look at it, overstated. And then you also do a deadly shot, which is worth 3 mana and a card. And in exchange, you have to discard a random card from your hand. So this is just bonkers insane.
It's just very good. I don't know why it is overstated and has a dragon tag. Also, dragon tag does count for a decent amount these days with a lot of these dragon synergies that are in. So I don't get it. Like why the stats have to be overstated for this. Oh, I actually do get it for constructed purposes. But yeah, it's just a really, really freaking good card. I think it's also easy to kind of see this and remember a lot of the super annoying boards that were or that are currently, it's still Monday, in play. And with the sets that are coming back, you don't have as many of those. So I'm not saying that you're not going to see all these annoying, like 1/1, 2/1 sort of boards. They're certainly possible. It's just with the cards that are in, it's a little bit less likely. So add that in, the fact that, like, you always think that you're going to discard the best card in your hand, and you're going to remember those times, but random card is a random card, and in fact the gap between the best cards and the average to a lot of just the decent cards in your deck, they're pretty huge.
They're going to be There's a lot of bad sets coming in.
Yeah. So yes, you can think like, well, if I lose a good card, like that's really bad. Yeah, but you don't have that many amazing cards in your deck. You will have a lot of like really average ones. You know what you don't discard? You don't discard this card because you use it. And if you have 2 of them and you discard the other one, great. Your deck is amazing. But this is just super duper good, man.
Like, just play it out in your head. Your opponent plays a Yeti, you play a Spawn of Deathwing, you have a 6/6, they don't have a Yeti anymore. Who cares what card you discard? Like, what are they gonna do? Like, your opponent just totally screws you over and, plays Twin Tyrant. And it's game-changing. It's Twin Tyrant. You play a Spawn of Deathwing, totally off curve. You still have 5 mana left to do whatever. Like, this is just a silly card. There's not... Hearthstone is designed for constructed, and they don't really care about fundamentals. Ixar's like talked about it before. They don't have a mathematical model, which is crazy to me that Hearthstone doesn't even attempt to have a mathematical model to ground cards. So it's literally whatever will probably not be broken in constructed goes. And constructed is based off of synergies for the most part. So whatever is not slotting in to existing many-carded synergies can be ridiculously powerful. In fact, it has to be ridiculously powerful for anyone to even consider playing it. And there's no good, not good. There's really no check on that. Besides someone maybe here and there saying, oh, that's maybe not a good idea. And so you get cards like these. This is a common. This is not going to be a good card in Constructed. But in Arena, this is going to be insane. It's and there's no reason for this card to be like that. Like, if you look at something like Caverns, a card like that will probably always have a gap between Constructed and Arena. If you look at any cards that discover a random card, or like a random category card, like a dragon or anything, that'll probably always have a gap between Constructed and Arena. Because in Constructed, your whole deck is constructed. It's very tight. All your card values are super high. In Arena, they're all very low, right? Relatively. They don't work together. So that singular discover at Dragon Queen Alexstrasza is so game-changing. So you can't really design around that without giving up either Arena or Constructed. And clearly, they're never going to give up Constructed. So they're going to give up the Arena on that, or rather, they're not going to think about Arena at all. But for cards like this, there's no reason this card exists this way. Except, like, there's no... This isn't an unsolvable problem. This is them not caring at all about Arena, and so they don't even try to solve it in the design, right? They've said this many times. The Arena is not considered at all in the design of any card. And when you don't have a mathematical model, and then you don't think about this game mode, it's going to be bad. And this is an example of the bad card. So these are the cards I'm really annoyed at. Like, Caverns, yeah. I'm like, what are you going to do?
And the answer to that is like, so it seems as though ADWCTA is like, oh, they don't care about Arena in the design of cards, and the logical answer to that is like, that's absolutely fine. Just curate it more. Then it's like, if you want to print this for Constructed, go ahead. But it's been like 7 years, and all you do is like, you always put them in the Arena. And let's not do, except for like that one time. Like it's mind-boggling that I'm like, oh, no, wait, they did it once for a card that wasn't even like the most egregious offender. Like it was bad, but
wait, what card did they ban?
The 9-mana 9/9, the Dragon Rag.
But that's neutral.
Yeah.
They do that for neutral, or they'll ban it pretty quickly, right? Like, remember Motion of Watch Post?
Yep.
Like, it gets banned very well. That was an S tier card as well. Like, an S tier.
People could have told them, like, never release that. Like, never release Watch Post. That is going to make so many people angry. But they still released it. And no, to their credit, they did release it fast.
Yeah, they did. And they did 2 ways. They nerfed it, and they moved it out of Arena at the same exact time. So they were like, this card is just too good, period, like for, you know, anything. And then also, even if it's not that good, we're still not going to put it in an arena.
So for something like Spawn of Deathwing, you know, it's not neutral or something, but I look at this, I'm just like, you know, you can make whatever cards you want for constructed, but it would be nice to have more of a consideration for arena if, like, you want to just put this in, whether it's through your adjustments, whether it's through not putting certain cards in. And I don't know what line you know, you want to draw it at. I think some people want to draw the line at lower. Some people want to draw the line at higher. But I think there should be a line. And I know there's been comments, for example, from Ixar. It's like, well, you know, if you remove the top, you have to address the next sort of thing. And people just keep going on. And it's like, well, no. It's like, to
it
some
stops
extent,
at some point. Like, think about, look at Night Captain. The community is like 50-50 on whether you should ban Night Captain or not. That's the line. They found the line.
There was a long thread on Arena HS, and I'm hoping that the Hearthstone devs will read that. I thought that was a great thread on Arena HS, where people talked about Night Captain. The OP was like, hey, Night Captain, super overpowered. We got to get rid of this ASAP. And a lot of the, you know, very upvoted posts were like, look, I get that it's very powerful. Number one, we have more concerning things. Number two, you can play around it. Like, you know, there are ways to play around it. And sometimes you can't, and that's what makes it very powerful, right? But sometimes you can. And if you are always getting hit by it, like on turn 5, right? It's like, I'm sure in at least some of those scenarios, you had another play in which you weren't giving up that much, but you just wanted to spam the best play and ignore the Night Captain.
Yep.
And that's not Hearthstone, right? Like, you can't just be like, okay, well, they never have Flame Strike. They never have this. They never have that. I have to just play like that. Sometimes also, you have to do that.
You can come back from getting Night Captain.
Yeah, you can come back from getting Night Captain.
In this day and age, right? Like, Night Captain.
It's just a better fire alley. Like, just a better fire alley. It's like, okay.
we're going to see another better fire alley coming up. Coming right up. All right, so this is an S tier card. If you guys have been following this, you know that my line has always been no A tier cards in neutral, no S tier cards in class cards unless they're legendary. And then you can have legendary neutrals that are A tier, and you can have legendary S tier cards that are class cards. Those are my lines, and I think life as an arena player would be a million times better if you drew those lines. And as you see from Night Captain, people recognize these lines. Not just me making random lines. There are lines. There are lines of playability. And it gets to the point where the community will be like, or at least half the people in the community will be like, all right, I think we're good. But when you have cards like Ysera, no one in the community is like, I think we're good. Or they're like a very small minority. And this is going to be one of those. Spawn of Deathwing. No one's going to be like, this is an okay card to have, like, once they play with it. I don't know. I mean, before it comes out, right? Like, people miss stuff. That definitely happens. Even more on Watch Post, which we thought was so obviously S tier broken. Plenty of people that didn't give it like a 5 out of 5. They gave it like a 4.5 out of 5. Or even lower. And it happens. There's people who review Spawn of Deathwing and, you know, don't think it's a super amazingly good card and just like a regular good card. And, you know, we'll see once it hits the ground how good it is, but I can't see this as being anything but an S tier card. Okay. Next up, we are into the A tier cards. So there are no A plus cards here. So we are all the way down to A's. So A's are still insanely good, by the way. Remember, A cards we think should not exist in neutral. This is Twin Tyrant level. Or, I mean, Twin Tyrant's a lowish A. So this will probably be like above a Twin Tyrant slightly. And we have a bunch of these. So let's hit them all. These are cards you're going to hate seeing, but these are all class cards, and this will be... they're just powerful class cards. They're not stuff you haven't seen before. So the first one is Razorglaive Sentinel. Razorglaive Sentinel. And it makes me sad that this card exists, and I'm talking about it like, this is just another super powerful card. It's nothing you haven't seen before. It's alright. And you'll see why. But this is the power level of the game right now. It's a 4 mana 5/4 Demon Hunter card, common. After you play the left or rightmost card in your hand, draw a card.
Yeah, you give up no stats.
Yep. Persistent ability.
It's a persistent effect. The only thing awkward about it is, I don't know, it doesn't cost less mana. Obviously with something like this, you want it to cost like nothing, right? Absolutely nothing at all. But it's just great. It's something with like pure upside. And therefore, holy shit, you can just play this and completely go off. And if you don't want to do that, you just want to get a vanilla stat, maybe just like draw one card from it. Cool. It's how much is a 4 mana 5/4 that draws one from your deck worth? That's still a very, very good card. So yeah, like easy A here.
Yep. Moving on, the next card, or I should say the next 3 cards are all A, and they are the 3 Druid cards that are being released. So Druid is getting a very powerful package here for this mini set. The first one is Scales of Onyxia. Scales of Onyxia is 7 mana. Fill your board with 2/1 Whelps with Rush. So
pretty good. The thing is, you've already seen Raid Boss Onyxia, and
which
now
is
you're
8 mana. Oh, sorry, it's 10 mana.
It's 10 mana, but you see, and now you see this, you're like, oh, I don't get the 8A. Like, oh, okay, this is still really good, guys. This is still really, really freaking good. Let's not forget about that, right? It's just another one of well, if you look at what was it, Swarm of Locusts, that card, that was half the attack of this one.
And that was a good card.
And that was a fine card. Swarm of Locusts was absolutely fine.
Like, I think that card was like a B or something. Or at least a C+, probably a B. This one's an A. This one's a solid A. If you could combo it, it could be even better. You're dealing potentially 14 damage with a little bit of awkwardness because you have to hit it 2 at a time. But
also, you need the board space.
Yeah.
So if you are hugely ahead, yes, this is worse. But I don't think this needs much explanation. This is like a very simple card to understand.
It is awkward though. I could see people being like, "Wait, but like Flame Strike deals 5 damage. This deals 2. How are these cards like rated essentially the same?" And part of it is that you can synergize as much easier with that Flame Strike, and the other one, the more important one, is that you see remember performers in Demon Hunter? If you get to select where things hit, cards become ridiculous. Scale of Onyxia is the same as performers. You're just like more awkward with it, so it's not anywhere as good as performers because you have to hit 2 damage at a time instead of 1 damage.
So yeah. Be careful when you say it's the same. It is definitely not.
It's the same concept. It's just not as good as performers, but it's easier to buff because you're a druid, at least in the arena.
Right.
I'm not saying this is a performers level. Performance is a S tier card, if not S+. I didn't do the math on it. But this is a solid A tier card.
Yep. Okay.
Next up, let's go with Boomkin. This is a rare druid card. This is the better fire elemental card. It is a 5 mana 4/5 with a choose one. Restore 8 health to your hero or deal 4 damage. So, I mean, they put the restore 8 health first, but you're going to deal 4 damage almost always.
Yeah, what's up with this? Like, it doesn't have to be corrupted. You don't have to honorably kill anything. You just get it. You just get it. That's It's so freaking good. Also, I think I say this every single review, but let's say it once again. Face damage is more important than ever. The swings are huge. There's just like a lot of things in which you don't feel as comfortable getting down to, let's say, 12 HP, right? There was a time in which like everybody could go down to like 12 HP, and you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. These days, if you're at like 14 health, you're not feeling great.
You're feeling about to die once they swing the board once.
Because that's the thing. It's not necessarily. It's like, wait, Merps, what are you afraid of? It's like there's not as many like face damage spells as there even used to be. And I agree. It's the swings. It's the possibility that once a swing happens, suddenly they're putting something out there, and then you are in danger, right? You are in danger because you have to expect these swings. So face damage is very, very important. It's like, sure, you don't have all of these like lava burst and pyroblast to go around, and a lot of the spells can only target minions now rather than target your face. But it is very different now, and your comfort level at certain HP markers is very different, and this is why. Part of the reason why it's like the rogue dagger just isn't as good as it used to be, right? You can't keep on taking that damage anymore. So this choice is very significant. Like 8 health to your hero is monstrously good. And sometimes I actually think like, maybe 20% of the time you might even pick that. It might be a little bit high. But this is at
least 10%.
Yeah, I think at least 10%, maybe up to 20% of the time you'll pick the 8 health to your hero. But goddamn, what a flexible card! So incredibly good. We love Knight Captain, and you have to honorably kill something. And yes, you get more stats after you honorably kill, but you also do less damage. You deal 3, and here you do 4. Holy shit! Just like Value City here.
So yeah, in case you're wondering, we think this card is better than Knight Captain. Okay.
Well, I think everybody should.
Yeah. I mean,
it's
I don't know.
Yeah.
Some people may just... There's really people out there who just think Knight Captain is deal 3 damage, play a 5 mana 6.
Like, I know. No, that is honestly the text that I think some people think Knight Captain is, which is funny.
Wait till we get to that rogue card. Okay, the last Druid card, also an A. These are all really, really, really good cards. But they're within the power level. Like, this is what I mean by I don't think the community will complain as much as the developers think. Because at least for us, and I think the developers think we're very complaining people, these are all totally okay cards for me.
Wow, they think we're complaining people.
But like, these are all A tier cards, and for a class card, A tier is fine. A plus is even fine. Like, there's still room to be better than these cards, and we would be like, yeah, these are really good cards, you should draft it, not like, go ban this card. And these are insanely good cards. So it's not, like, I think the devs think that they're just going to, like, run into this constant cycle of complaints. And that's not how, like, we are. Because they think relatively, right? Because they're constructive players. And they think relative, because that's how constructive works. We made an algorithm, and so we think in absolute terms. We think in fundamentals. This is Arena. This is limited format. So we know when a card's really good and a card's really bad, and it's just math. So I think that's a concept that kind of gets lost when you're talking with primarily constructed players or devs.
So here's the thing. Blizzard has told us before, like that, not us, but they've like talked about before. They actually do read Reddit, and they read Arena HS sometimes as well. So I am really hoping that they read that big thread on Knight Captain, because that is a perfect display of the community really pushing back and arguing the merits of Knight Captain, which, like, it's on our scale, and I think the community has a good sense of just like, yeah, it's like, okay, look, this is Arena in 2022, and Knight Captain is kind of where it's at, right? Like, this is fine. You don't automatically lose to it.
If Tyrant is not fine, Knight Captain is fine. The line is right there.
Tyrant is not fine. Ysera is definitely not fine. Onyxia is definitely not going to be fine. That thing is, oh boy. And then other things as well, right? Like Ivus.
Ivus S tier card.
The problem with a lot of these is just, you can't play around it. It just feels really, really bad. So, man, I really hope that the devs read it, because I think that's a shining example of, hey, like, have more faith in the community. This is like I reference this so much. The Dark Knight, right? It's like with the two boats, and then Batman has faith in, and he tells the Joker, he's like, look, you have no faith in these people, right? You think they're gonna blow each other up. Like, trust in these people. It's like people will sort of like believe in each other, and then what does the Dark Knight show us? It's like, oh, those people, like, through even though there are people in extremes, right? They prevailed. Just like in that Arena HS thread, people prevailed. People were like, hey, look, I understand you're frustrated, but let's talk about it. There are ways to play around it, dude. And they even went into great details, like, hey, like,
it got really technical.
How are you playing here? Because in my experience, it's like the percent of times that you get screwed by Knight Captain should be less than what you are saying, and I think you can be making better plays. Like, they, instead of pushing it onto the card design, they're asking this guy, because I think the community looked at it and was like, yeah, you can play around Knight Captain. It's a thing. So, oh my god, let's please have that Dark Knight moment where the devs look at this and they're like, oh, wait, it's like, yeah, if we just went down to the Knight Captain level, it actually wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And these people that are just complaining about Ysera a lot, and just like how they complained before about something like a Watch Post, right? Or an Abominable Lieutenant, it's like, it won't be the same. So, oh my gosh, please, I'm just hoping for that so much.
All right. Anyway, this is the last of the 3 Druid cards, all A tier cards, which are class cards we think is okay to exist in the game. These aren't even A+. Raid Negotiator. 4 mana, 3/4, battle cry, discover a choose 1 card. It has both effects combined. So, once you discover this card, you're going to want to play it pretty quickly because it has a bonus effect. That's just going to be extra tempo or cards or whatever. And it's 4 mana, 3/4. Then you get an extra card, which is already pretty good. And you get to discover a choose 1 card. Choose 1 cards are obviously all Druid class cards. So it's just pretty damn powerful.
Yeah. This is really, really freaking good. You anti-tempo a little bit, but you make it up like immediately and more so. That's all I'll say about it. Like, it's really, really freaking good.
All right. Still in the A tier group, we're gonna go all the way down to Shaman. Shaman has a card called Don't Stand in the Fire. It is a fire card, and you shouldn't stand in it. It's 5 mana. Deal 10 damage, randomly split among all enemy minions. Overload 1. So, splitting damage among enemy minions only, not including the face, means that very often you'll have perfect damage. And you will just clear really weird looking boards with this card. And that is really, really valuable. It's a total of 6 mana, including one of them being delayed. And it functions as a board clear that probably should cost more than 6 mana.
Yeah, like, I think some people will look at something like, oh, well, Full-Blown Evil is better than this. And it's like, okay. That's great.
True.
Yes. It's like, how does that matter? This is still, in its own way, extraordinarily good. And you can have worse versions of cards that are still incredible. So that's where we're at here. Don't, like, it's very easy to look at this and be like, oh man, it's like a more disappointing version of Full-Blown Evil. And it's just like, oh man, it's like, you're just a slightly less attractive version of, Brad Pitt. And it's like, heck, wait, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And Full-Blown Evil, by the way, is a Warlock card. And Warlocks are stuffed with board clear. Shamans have plenty of board clears, but they're not like you're not drafting Shaman and being like, oh my god, I need to stop taking board clears because I have too many board clears. Whereas for Warlock, that happens like half the time. So if you look at our score for Full-Blown Evil, it was the same score. It's also an A. Although Full-Blown Evil, I think, is better.
It's better.
But
it's definitely better.
It's not like that much better.
Also, it's class by class, right?
Yeah.
So Warlocks...
If Full-Blown Evil was not in Warlock, it would be way better.
Yeah. Oh my god. Can you imagine if like full blown evil was in Rogue?
Oh.
Like if it was in a class like Rogue, I mean that would it would never happen. Like, but if it was in a class like Rogue, that would be insane. That would actually just be insanity, right? But it isn't, and therefore it is just very, very good instead of every rogue's kind of like dream scenario.
All right, we're getting to our last A tier card. So this ends the kind of highest power levels in this new mini set, and it is a warrior card. 1 mana spell, hit it very hard. That's the name. Gain plus 10 attack and can't attack heroes this turn.
So this is a card that I like more than you.
Yeah, yeah. I had it as a B plus actually, and then when you wanted it as an A, I was like, okay, I could go with like the lowest A. I'm not gonna fight for the B plus on this one.
Yeah, and I agree. It's not like the highest A. And if you guys are wondering, there is a decent gap in the like A category. But it kind of like doesn't matter.
It's like you see this card, you take it, right? Like that's kind of what A means.
So holy hell, if we're just talking about tempo, oh my god, this thing is so disgusting. And if you guys just think for a second, what the meta is nowadays in terms of the minions that you see, I'm gonna say this again. We see a lot more polarized minions. You don't just have like 5/4s, 4/5s, right? 6/5s, 5/6s. You got like the 2/10, right? You have like the 2/10 taunt that freezes. Hey, this thing kills it in one freaking shot. You guys know how annoying that 2/10 is? Well, it's no longer annoying. Yes, it gets, quote, in the way of the weapon slot. That's fine. So a lot of times you won't use all 10 attack. You know, you only use some of it. But if you just look at it and you're like, okay, this is just a super holy smite sometimes. Other times it is... if you just look at all these scenarios, god damn, that is a tempo swing and a half. And in the metas that we see today, you get closer and closer to being able to use more and more of the 10 attack. They're just these weird things that come out, which have like a ton of health now. So I think the 2/10 is like the perfect example because you see that a lot, and it's super duper annoying, right?
Ice Hoof Protector.
Yeah, Ice Hoof Protector
is not even like that good, right? I think we have it as a C plus. Yeah. Maybe it should be a B, but like it's not like a really, really good card.
It's just a meta appropriate.
Exactly,
card,
it's
right?
a meta appropriate card, and it like is super annoying.
Yep. And yes, just like chat pointed out, this does kill Twin Tyrant.
Well, the Twin Tyrants already took 2 of your cards, and now you use 3 cards to kill the Twin Tyrant. Congrats.
But hey, you have mana advantage now, right?
It depends on what the Twin Tyrant killed.
You can play your stuff at least. But yes, I really like this. ADWCTA likes it a little bit less than me. I like it a lot. I think that, you know, this is obviously nowhere close to S tier. It's got too many problems, too many weaknesses for that. But holy hell, the tempo advantage is insane. And if you only use it for like 4 damage, if you only use it for 5 or 6 damage, which is the vast majority of times, right? Like, that's great still. So that's why I put it at an A.
Yeah. When you're playing this card, like when you have this card in your hand, don't try to get super max value out of it. Like, just squeeze it in where you can and deal like, I'd say 4 is a little on the low side, but like 5 seems like okay.
5 damage is good, yeah.
Yeah, like 5 damage is very good, especially if it's something like a 2/5, right? Or like, you know, something where you maybe take a little less damage, or you need it and it opens up the gates for a positive trait, right? Because something has taunt or something. Like don't be too stingy with it. You don't need this to actually kill something with 10 health. Like don't wait on the Twin Tyrant with this card. And I know it's capable of it, but
yeah, it's definitely at its best killing something like a Stegodon, right? In which it costs more for your opponent to play it. You're not taking that much health. But the thing that is out there is really annoying. So that's the best example. And then you get a 3 mana advantage by doing that. That's fantastic. Does that make it an A card? Yeah, it does.
All right, now let's look at some cards that are B plus. we're now like B plus gets. This is where Knight Captain is. So we're at still very powerful cards that people think should be banned, but all of the B plus cards here are class cards, so people don't really think they should be banned. These are still powerful cards, and not as powerful as the A tier though. And the first one is in Warrior. It is Shoulder Check, another 1-mana Warrior spell. This one's tradable. Glad they bought that keyword back. Give a minion +2/+1 and Rush. So
super good.
1-mana buff that gives +2/+1, which is already good. And you give it Rush, which means that +2/+1 stat also has Rush. And if nothing works out, you can even trade it.
Why do they have to give this tradable? I don't understand. I really have no idea. But man, what a good card. The only thing holding it back is like, hey, you don't do anything that crazy.
Yeah, it's small.
Like it's small. It's small. It doesn't do anything that crazy, but solidly B plus. I mean, this is so good. The fact that it's tradable, initiative is, even though it's more plentiful these days, there's so many important things that you just can't leave out there. So more Rush is always appreciated.
More Rush is great for Warrior too, because if you don't have enough Rush for some reason, like you can't hit multiple targets. You only have one weapon that you can swing. So it's as far as utility cards go, right? This one's got everything. Okay, next B plus card is Impfestation, a Warlock card. Remember, Warlock already has Spawn of Deathwing. So here's the second fiddle to Spawn of Deathwing that's gonna be very good for Warlock. Infestation is a 6-mana Fel spell. Some actual Fel spells coming in on this rotation, by the way. You guys remember last rotation where there were no Fel spells, and then they added some Fel synergy in Alterac? Well, there's a Fel spell for you. Infestation is 6 mana. Summon a 3/3 Dread Imp to attack each enemy minion.
I like this card, once again, a little bit more than you, I think. I'm just, once again, trying to picture what the board looks like. And this is important. And I think that it's more important than ever before. I think that this card in the current meta would be
ridiculously insane.
Good. You just think about how good like Bunker Sergeant is and everything. Because you don't need that many value trades to make this great. As in, you really just need like one value trade. And then you have like you've basically hellfired their board, and you leave behind like a 3/1 or a 3/2, and anything past that, like any other sort of like quote value trades, makes this really, really ridiculous. So this is me just thinking, it's like, okay, how much will the boards change? They'll definitely change a little bit. And this is not going to be a card that you are just looking at. It's like, oh man, I just spam this when it comes to turn 6. This is not like a DQA, right? And it's
a part of the reason why you should use it as it.
Yeah, it's one of the situations where you might have to set up a little bit. You might have to bait your opponents a little bit. You might have to wait a turn or two and, for lack of better terms, luck into it, like your opponent plays a board. But man, is it really, really freaking good. I just really like this, the kind of board that you can put together and put pressure on your opponent while kind of clearing a lot of their stuff. So yeah, I like it. It could not be as good as I'm thinking of, but I'm just trying to picture the board afterwards, and I think it'll still be B plus worthy. So
yeah, I mean it's entirely dependent on the board state. And what you typically see out there. And this card is just, the swing is so big. The swing is so big when it hits. Like, imagine getting like 3/3/2s and then also clearing everything on your opponent's board for 6 mana. Like, it's a huge tempo swing when it hits. When it doesn't hit though, and I mean, you're not going to play when it doesn't hit. So it's just going to sit as a dead card in your hand for quite a long time, I think. and that is why the value is not actually insane. Like you'll get destroyed by this card as if it were a S+ tier card, and you will do the same thing to your opponents. But much like Nightcap, how Night Captain does not actually deal 3 damage, play a 6/6 at 5 mana, this card is not actually going to hit its peak with great frequency. But yeah, it's still B+, insanely good Night Captain levels. All right, moving on. We are now in the Paladin zone. So the final 2 B+ cards are both Paladin cards. They are first, Ring of Courage. Ring of Courage is a 2 mana spell, tradable. Give a minion +1/+1, then repeat for each enemy minion. So if your opponent has one thing on the board, it's a +2/+2.
Yeah. So it doesn't take much for this thing to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
As in, okay, we remember sort of like the pre-nerf, like Mark of the Wild or Hand of a Doll, and those have extra modifications, right? One has taunt, one has draw a card and everything. Oh, by the way, you might want to move the card up. But this is just pretty solid. Like, you're just going to get a decent amount of stats, and typically that's when you need the stats, right? Like, when they have more minions, you probably want more stats on the thing. And if you have a 2 mana +3/+3, that's pretty good. And remember, that just takes 2 minions. Like 2 mana +3/+3 is quite a good card. That's like a much cheaper. It's half the price of Blessing of Kings, and you are getting like 3/4 of it, right? So it's just really solid. And I think it's easy for people to look at it and be like, "Whoa, wait, this isn't crazy." And it's like, it's not crazy, but you put it on a taunt when they're really threatening you, and that's when you need the stats the most, right? You put on something that has life steal, that's when you need the stats the most. Stats still matter at the end. We're coming down a little bit. We've talked about DQA, we talked about Onyxia, we talked about all of these things that blow things out. So I think it's easy to get into this mindset of like, nothing matters, only DQA and Onyxia. Stats still matter in the end. Just think of this meta, right? Everybody talks about the top classes, and they talk about Snowfall, they talk about Wild Palm, Inquisitor, Cycle of Hatred. How many games are just won by playing random shit? Maybe you see a Night Captain here or there, and then the mid-range deck that has spammed out some stuff goes face, and they win. That's the majority of games, actually. It's not a vast majority, like there's enough such that people are really angry about all those things and the 2 classes that I just talked about. But a lot of games are just won and lost by normal Hearthstone, even nowadays. This is a normal Hearthstone card, and that's fine. It doesn't stop normal Hearthstone cards from being good.
And the scaling, it works really in your favor once you get off the curve. Because it's like, when does your opponent not have any minions on their side and it's your turn, right? They always play a minion.
Yep.
And later on in the game, they usually play 2 or 3 minions. Usually. So this card has like in the arena, at least, it has this like subtle effect that's like those rank up cards, where as you have more total mana, the card just does more. It also can be tradable if you just like don't have a board to buff and your opponent is just like focusing on big things. So it's one of those utility cards that actually ends up being quite good. The number of times in which your minion was going to be eaten, and instead you buff it, and your minion eats your opponent's minion, and from that point on, the game irrevocably swings in your favor, and you get that board, and you get that face damage, and you are a Paladin, and that is what you need, is so high, like, for Paladin. So this is what you need.
And of course, at the end of the day, it's tradable.
Yeah.
You're not stuck with this card. If you need to find something else, great, find something else. And that adds a lot to it because these days, especially in this meta, we talked about why does something like Bunker Sergeant or a Ram Commander, why are they so high? It's because like not only is it exactly what you need, it keeps you in the game, right? And this could keep you in the game because of what we talked about. But if you really need something specific, fine, trade it away. I think tradable in like the upcoming meta is just going to be more valuable than ever before. If you don't want to get blown out, if you have something that's awkward, if you really need to find your huge late game hitter, you're coming up on turns 8 and turn 9, and you feel the game slipping away, and you're like, no, I like the Ring of Courage. It's just kind of useless for me. I want one more draw into that really good thing. Yeah, then this card is really good as just a tradable token. So use it.
All right. Next B plus card is also a Paladin. It is the Battle Vicar. How do you pronounce it? Vicar?
Yeah, Vicar.
Vicar?
I don't know.
Okay, it's a Battle Vicar. It's a 2-mana 1/3. Battle Cry, discover a holy spell. Really good. Discovering spells is really good. This card does it.
Discovering a spell is pretty good. There's really not a lot of spells out there. Like the vast majority are going to be the core cards. So if you want that Bach, if you want that Consecrate, I didn't exactly run the percentages on it, but like, yeah, you have an incredibly high chance of like getting one of those like really impactful ones. So it's good.
All right. Now let's talk about the B tier cards. The B tier cards are the bread and butter of your game. If you look at Alterac, somewhere between C and B, like C plus and B is usually where all the cards of your deck is. So if you get a B card, you're pretty happy with it, but you're not like super happy with it. Yeah, like they're helpful in your deck. They're not hurting your deck. Once you get to C plus, kind of hurting your deck a little. So the first one, we're going to talk about our first neutral card that is not Raid Boss Onyxia. So this is the neutral card, the only neutral common, the only neutral rare in this set, and it is Gear Grubber. 4 mana, 4/5 taunt. If you end your turn with any unspent mana, reduce this card's cost by 1.
This is one that okay, explain your reasoning for it.
Okay, first of all, does this work when it's in your deck? No, right? It has to be in your hand.
No, it has to be in your hand. It has to be in your hand.
So, 4 mana, 4/5 taunt, pretty good, right? Already. The question is, how often are you going to be able to inefficiently use your mana, and not on purpose, because you're just kind of like banking a mana when you do that. When this card is in your hand, play out the early game. 1 mana. If you don't have a 1 mana minion, then you bank 1 mana. You play your 2-drop, you play your 3-drop. This is your 3, right? And you have a very overstated 3-drop, and it's really, really good. But you have to have it in your hand before the end of turn 1. So if you draw it on turn 2, if you draw it on turn 3, it doesn't work unless you're missing your 2-drop and you draw it on turn 2. So the chances of you having this on turn 3 is less than half. Significantly, like, not like terrible, but it is, I don't know, maybe I didn't run the entire math on it, but I'm guessing around 40%, if not lower. I don't know how long games are going to go in this new meta. With all the raid boss Onyxias and Dragon Queen Alexstraszas and all the discovers, I think it's going to go on for longer than this current meta. That would be my prediction, especially with one of the key cards coming in being that 7/7 taunt that you can't remove with spells. So you're going to have some times in which this is going to be a 3 mana 4/5, but it's not going to be most of the time. And if you have a coin, it's the same thing, right? Like if you have another 3-drop and then this card, you don't do anything on turn 1 and then you coin into it. It's the same deal. And those are the good uses of this card. But can't really control it, it's all luck. If you get this card later on, it's a 4-mana 4/5, but later on you're not hanging mana as much, and you're really going to fit this card into your play whenever you can. So is it really going to be reduced? Like, I think people have this idea that because you can just keep it in your hand and it'll keep getting reduced whenever you inefficiently use your mana, it's going to be reduced to like 0 mana at some point and then you just like throw it out. That's almost never going to happen. Because you would have to hang 4 mana on 4 separate turns while this card burns a hole in your hand. At least half of those turns, this card is totally playable for good over tempo. So you would actually just play this card out by the time it hits like 2 mana, probably at worst. Really likely even by 3 mana you would do. Remember, there's a lot more card generation happening now, and especially with things like Ram Commander that's still going to be in, and still going to be insanely good. You're going to have a lot less turns that are purely awkward on a mana perspective. So I ran a bunch of math, and it is a B.
You can get behind that. And remember, guys, B is where you have stuff like Basilisk, right? That's where you have stuff like Wrapped Golem. So it's good. I kind of agree with where this ended up. So I think it's easy to look at this card and think about all of these other cards that you can manipulate and be like, oh, it can get like much cheaper. But this one, just 1 per turn if you have any unspent mana. So a really good scenario, I guess, is like, okay, you don't do anything on turn 1, which is like happens a decent amount of times, right? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of times. And then what? You have the coin, and you coin out a 3-mana 4/5 taunt, which is quite good. Not as game winning as it used to be. I mean, that's not game winning at all, right? Let's face it, it's not game winning. It's just quite good. And if you keep spending turns by not using your mana, you are probably falling behind in some way as well. And it's not like you can extra bank, right? Yep. It's like, oh, I skip all of my turn 2, and it reduces this cost by 2. Still reduces the cost by 1. So yeah, it's good. And potentially you could sort of like do some things, and on turn like 5 or something, get this out for really cheap, like 1 mana or even 0 mana, while you were still doing kind of like equivalent things to your opponent. But yeah, the more I look at it, the harder it is for me to see. And I'm like, a B is definitely more than fair.
Yep. Okay, but it's going to be an interesting card. And remember, it's a beat card. You're going to still pick it a decent number of times over the other
You'll pick
cards.
it a decent amount of times, even if it's a 4-mana 4/5 taunt.
Yeah.
You've seen that's kind of okay. You will also lose to this sometimes. Just like, I mean, think about Basilisk and Wrapped Golem. You lose to those sometimes. And when I mean you lose to those, like those had a big effect on whether or not you won or lost the game. And that'll happen with this card, I think, as well.
Okay. Next card, again, another B. I'm going to go to this one. This is one we had. This is the only card that we had a significant disagreement on. And, we usually talk it out and we end up on the same page on pretty much all the cards. But this one, we're just coming at it from different perspectives. And that is Keen Reflex. It is a 2-mana Demon Hunter card, spell, common, deal 1 damage to all minions. Honorable Kill. Gain +1 attack this turn. The Honorable Kill triggers for each one you kill. So, Merps has it as a B, and I have it as a C. I started out even lower, and I was eventually talked up to like a C, but I would not go higher than a C for this card.
I like it. I'll tell you guys why I like it. The more I see where the meta is trending, and the more I play, the more I like these effects that mathematically, you're just like, well, it doesn't exactly add up, right? Just like kind of Bunker Sergeant with the last expansion. If you look at something like a Ram Commander, right, it doesn't immediately blow you away, and you're like, whoa, you're getting a huge amount. You kind of just want these cards that keep you in the game. You know, these small AoE effects we've seen are decent. I know Dreads actually likes Beakered Lightning in his Shaman decks now, and it's just sort of like, okay, I want these cards that help me solve this problem. I want to get to my end game because you kind of better have an end game these days. I don't want to get blown out before then. Yes, this hits your own minions, but I think a couple of factors beyond what I just said push it over the top. The honorable kill, you know, you gain +1 attack for each time you honorably kill with this. You can gain like an extra 3 attack with it. Quite flexible. Sometimes you can use that to just push a little bit of face, and with Demon Hunters, that face pressure is pretty valuable. The more I just thought about it, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give it that sort of Bunker Sergeant, Ram Commander treatment of it's just more than the sum of its individual kind of mathematical parts. And I'm thinking back, like we had this conversation. Like I remember in last expansion, I wanted Bunker Sergeant high. Like you know, I was higher on Bunker Sergeant. You were a little bit lower. And part of the reason was you were just like, okay, let's add it up. It doesn't exactly add up, right? And I was just like, yes, I agree with you because if you just combine Arcane Explosion sometimes, right? With a pretty bad body of 2/4 body. It's like it doesn't exactly add up. But I'm just like, I just like this as a package, even though you shouldn't like it as a package, actually. But the package just sort of works. I don't exactly know what the meta is going to be. Like, you know, this isn't us working on the Lightforge tier list. We're not like going to tell you, okay, this is exactly what your average board state is going to be like on these specific turns. But I'm looking at this and I'm just getting that Bunker Sergeant vibe. I'm getting all these vibes. And I'm just thinking about how the meta is. I'm like, okay, you want to get to your bombs. This is going to help you get there. This is going to help you survive, to make the plays, to do all of this stuff, to just cut out some of these losses in which you're just like, well, that was like, that sucked. I didn't even really had a chance to play. I wish I had a Bunker Sergeant. I wish I had a keen reflex. So that's my understanding. Like, that's what I'm thinking when I rate this a B.
I broke this down with Merps, and we have the same assumptions about everything. It was like, how often is this going to honorably kill? How many attack are you gaining? You know, how much damage you're dealing with it, and it all came down the same. And I don't think the numbers lie. This upcoming meta is not going to be the same meta as it is before. I mean, it's guaranteed to not be the same, but I mean, it's going to be fundamentally different because the sets coming in are not sets that have a ridiculous number of things that you want to ping. It's not going to be drastically different in terms of pingable things, because a lot of the pingable things actually come from Alteric itself. But it's going to be not as tilted in that direction. Like the meta we came in from, like Bunker Sergeant and Ram Commander are uniquely insanely good in that. And you can tell because Mermy is insanely good in that meta. Like, we've been tracking Mermy since forever, and it's always a good card, but it's never even close to being this good. And it is this good in this current meta. In the next meta, it will not be that good. Like, I am happy to be proven wrong, but if Mermy is the #1 neutral non-legendary card in this upcoming meta, then I am terrible at guessing the meta. I'll bet Mermy doesn't even crack the top 5. And with that assumption, which is where Mermy normally is, Mermy normally is not past the top 5. This is a Whirlwind, where for 1 extra, and Whirlwind is terrible, and for 1 extra mana, you gain like 2 to 3 attack. 2 to 3 attack is good, but you're also a Demon Hunter. You're using your face damage a lot, and your face is sensitive. We talk about the big swings. Especially as a Demon Hunter, you don't want to be taking that much damage. You want to be taking it in an efficient way. And when you combine these two, you have an uncertain amount of damage that you're getting from your for your like face, the amount of attack. With a board clear that hits both sides, it makes it impossible to set up, only reactively. Like it's just a terrible combination, even aside from the numbers. So if anything, this card is lower than what its numbers should indicate. And its numbers are indicating a low C. So I would not be surprised if this card ends up being a D. Like a D tier card within Demon Hunter. I think let's put it this way. I think it's more likely to end up being a D tier card than it is to be a B tier card. But I have it at a C right now. I also would not draft Vicar even in this meta. That still feels like a worse than Yeti card. I mean, I don't know how high Dreads is drafting it. Maybe he's drafting it over like crappy cards. But I would never take a Vicar over in Shaman over a Yeti.
He's drafted it like multiple times in like multiple Shaman decks.
So. That's even in this meta, I don't think that adds up. I think, a couple times is a couple times, right? There are always outlier decks that it works particularly well with, or outlier runs in which it does a lot. Especially cards that are very extreme, like 0 mana cards. But over the course of the long run, I think these cards are not really that good in this meta, and they're going to be even worse in the next meta. So that's Keen Reflex. The next card is... So that's the only card we really disagreed on. The next card is a B tier card, also in Demon Hunter, and it's not much to talk about. It's Wings of Hate, 1 mana, summon 2 1/1 Fellwings. It upgrades when you have 5 mana, and then it upgrades again when you have 10 mana. So you'll summon like 3 and then 4.
3 and then 4. It's good. It's fine. I don't know. Like you'll take the Alley Cat, right? You'll take the the little tempo boost past 5 mana or at 10 mana. It's fine.
Next is Furious Howl. Furious Howl is a hunter card, and it is the best hunter card coming in, and that is not good. There's going to be a couple classes where there's not a card that is better than tier B. Some classes don't even have a card better than tier C. And Hunter's one of them. Furious Howl is 2 mana. I mean, first of all, Hunter's going to be fine, right? Like, the Explorer is coming in. Literally an S+ tier card for Dragon Discovers. But Furious Howl is 2 mana, draw a card, repeat until you have at least 3 cards. So, you'll draw plenty of cards with this if you're a fast hunter. And it's very good if you're a fast hunter. But are fast hunters going to be good in this meta? I don't know. Right? If they are, then this card gets even better. If they're not, and instead we're just sitting there discovering stuff all day, even as a hunter, because of Emerald Explorer, then this card may not be all that good. But in an average meta, it would be B, and it's hard to call the meta right now.
Yeah, you just never know what'll happen, because Blizzard might even forget to put some cards in. This happens multiple times. Maybe they forget to put some stuff in. Maybe they change the way that things discover. Who knows? Yeah, it's like for the meta that I'm thinking of, it's not going to be good. But I'm a little bit unsure. I would say for the meta that I'm envisioning, it's going to be like a low B, might fall to like the C's. But we'll see how it goes.
Yep. And I believe we have one more B tier card. The final B tier card is in Warrior. It is a 4 mana Yeti with a taunt. What was it called? Onyxian Drake. It's a dragon. That's important. 4 mana, 4/5 taunt, battle cry, deal damage equal to your armor to an enemy minion. That's a good armor synergy. Because even with 6 mana, you can do it on the same turn, and it's totally fine. You've added 2 more mana, you've added 2 more damage. Is it ideal? No, but if you need to deal 2 damage to something to kill it, this will solve your problem. And if you have armor just like hanging out from before, or you have some kind of other synergy with armor, this could get kind of insane. So it's a B. Like, if it didn't have this ability, it would be a C.
Yeah, it's good. Don't discount this ability. There are definitely some ways to gain armor. You'll just hero power sometimes as well. And I love the fact that this taunts. It's kind of exactly what you want as a warrior. So, nice solid B card. That also enables other things because it's a dragon.
Yep. All right. Now we're moving on to the C+ cards. There are 2 C+ cards. These are a tiny bit worse than the average card in your deck, but not by much. You probably won't care too much about it. The first one is, let's go with the neutral one first. It is Whelp Bonker. It is an epic card. You won't see it a lot. It's also weird. You may not want to draft it, but it's actually okay. It's a 3 mana 1/5 minion that has Frenzy and Honorable Kill. Draw a card. So what that means, to my understanding and how I calculated this, and this may go up or down a tiny bit, probably not that much, based on if I'm wrong about this understanding. But Frenzy, if you remember, means if it gets damaged, the very first time that it gets damaged, this triggers. And it survives. This triggers. Honorable Kill means if you affirmatively attack something with this and it kills that thing, you draw a card.
Well, you have to deal perfect damage.
Yeah, right. Well, if you kill it, you attack it and kill it. Yes, you have to deal perfect damage in case
you have to deal perfect damage.
But this is 1 damage, right? So if you don't buff it, it's just you get killed.
Right. You're not counting for the...
Yeah, but if you buff it, right?
Let's throw that out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are independent, to my understanding.
They are independent.
Which means it's a 3 mana 1/5. They're probably not going to kill it in 1 turn. You're almost guaranteed to draw 1 card if you play it on curve. If you play later on and you have the board, you're also very likely to be able to draw a card. But even afterwards, you can then honorably kill and draw more cards.
That is also my understanding. You guys can tell me if we are wrong, but that is my understanding, and that is, I agree with this rating. One of the problems with this card is just like, it's not too hard to generate cards, to draw cards, and do all of that stuff. A 1/5 on 3 is not great, and then of course later on it's obviously not great. The honorable kill is like, oh yeesh, you know, how many times are you getting the honorable kill with that? So a lot of things hold it down, but I think the majority is just like, there are so many ways to draw cards or generate cards. You're nothing special, Whelp Bonker.
Yep. C+, still good. Check it out. Don't pick it over actual good cards, but it is not a card that you have to like avoid at all costs or anything. The other C+ card is Tooth of Nefarian. I know a lot of people really like this card, so I'm going to read the card and I'm going to say kind of the same speech that we said for Knight Captain back in the day of our last review, and why that's only a B+ and not an A. And I think we were right that it was a B+, and it's the same thing here. Tooth of Nefarian is a 3 mana rogue spell that says deal 3 damage. Honorable Kill. Discover a spell from another class. So first off, discovering a spell from another class is really, really, really insanely good. That's a very high value card. You get to discover, which means you have control over it. You won't get the total misses, at least not at all with any frequency. So you're going to try really hard to honorably kill with this card. Just like with Knight Captain, getting an additional +3/+3 is really, really, really insanely good. You're going to try to honorably kill with that. But it also deals the same amount of damage as Knight Captain, which is 3 damage. And if you think about Knight Captain, and when you can use it and when you can't use it, you'll have a good sense of when Tooth of Nefarian can be used. Because Tooth of Nefarian is even harder to use than Knight Captain. Because Knight Captain, once you hit your honorable kill, you get insane tempo. Which kind of makes up for the fact that you're kind of like waiting around for it, maybe for like a turn or two more than you would otherwise if it was just a 6/6 deal 3 damage. Tooth and Nefarian, even if you get the chance to use it, you have to be comfortable anti-tempoing yourself. And you don't know what you're getting. And these days, 3 mana for 3 damage, much like 2 mana for 2 damage, or 1 mana for 1 damage, is not that good. And it gets worse the more mana you put in for more damage. Right? Like 4 mana for 4 damage is god-awful. 3 mana for 3 damage is like passable, but you're losing tempo compared to your opponent by doing this. So if they don't have like a 5/3 on the board, or something that you have to kill, it becomes tough to play. And you want to play it. Like, because if the scenario comes up where they have something at 3 health, you really want to play this card, or else this becomes stuck in your hand for even longer. Right? The good part about Knight Captain is that whenever the condition triggers, you can kind of play it. It's rare that you're like, I don't really want a 6/6 on the board. But a lot of times you don't need this extra spell in your hand just yet. And you'd rather have that tempo. And you can't do it. Because you kind of really want to trigger this, or else who knows how long more you have to wait before you can trigger it. So that's why it's only a C+. I feel like we're going to be on the lower side of rating for this compared to most people. And most people are going to look at it and say, oh my god, Discover, and like 3 damage, 3 mana, that's okay. But the honorable kill, I think, really holds it back.
Yeah, this is one that I was initially a little bit higher on as well. But man, that Knight Captain comparison I think is very, very apt. It's such a world of difference when you look at it between this and Knight Captain, and the guarantee that you get with Knight Captain. And if you're going to say to me, well, Merps, one is 3 mana, one is 5 mana, that doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't matter.
One is a 2 mana 6/6. One is a 0 mana draw a card, discover a card.
Yeah, it like in the vast majority of times it doesn't matter. You're discovering a spell, but let's face it, there are also a lot of really shit spells in the game as well. Your chances of completely missing are small. It's not going to happen very often. But, are there going to be times in which you miss? Sure. Are there going to be times in which you just get like an okay-ish card, but now you're kind of like stuck, you're a little bit unhappy that you just spent 3 mana to deal 3 damage? Yeah, I can see all of those. So, taking all of those into account, do I like it a little bit more than a C+? I don't know, maybe, but we're not too far off from what I think it is as well. And for those of you guys who are like, oh, but this is easier to trigger because you are a rogue, with a Knight Captain, have you played Knight Captain with Rogue? It's still not that easy. And we are comparing. It's like, yes, if you're wondering if we rate Rogue cards by remembering that you are a Rogue, yes, we take that into consideration. Knight Captain is still not the easiest to play. Now, you have the dagger, it is easier. And just like this is not the easiest to play. So I initially was higher on this, and I was like, okay, you can talk me down.
Yeah, it's awkward. And again, we don't think it's a bad card. We think it's a slightly below average of your deck card.
Yeah.
Which, still means you're going to pick it very often over your other choices. All right. Like, just to give an example, right? Evasive Draconid is a C, so you would take this over Evasive Draconid if you were only caring about value. And you're going to have an Evasive Draconid in your deck, probably. So, this is, we're at C+. This is still a good card. I don't want people to walk away from us dissing it and saying, like, oh, God, I guess I shouldn't take it unless I have, like, no other reasonable choices. Like, no, this is significantly better than a Yeti. We're just being harsh on it because I haven't really looked at other people's ratings, but I just get the feeling that everyone's gonna be like everyone's gonna be rating this card like at a B+. And it's really a C+. And the difference between a B+ and a C+ is pretty big. It's not a battle of the car, is kind of what we're saying. It's not even close to a battle of the car. All right. We are now done with C+s. We're going to go into a whole bunch of Cs. C's are kind of the low end of C is where Yeti is, slash the high end of D+, however you want to look at it. And then C's are actually kind of a narrow range because a lot of cards usually like end up falling in. This is what we consider like the standard card, which means that you don't really want these in your deck, but they're not going to kill your run or anything like that. And you're going to have a couple of these in your deck, guaranteed. So the first one is the neutral card. This one's common. You'll see it a lot. It is Onyxian Warder. 5 mana, 3/6 dragon. Battlecry, if you're holding a dragon, which you will be because it's a dragon meta, summon 2/2/1 Whelps with Rush.
So here's the thing. ADWCTA says like, oh, you'll be holding dragon. Yeah, it's like, yeah, you'll be holding dragon sometimes. The reason why this isn't higher, first of all, I am shocked they didn't print this in 2022 as like at least a 4/6. Are you shocked? Yes. I am absolutely floored.
I love it, but I am shocked.
Stats away from this hardcore in order to have this. Like, they could have printed this as a 5/6, and I would have been like, all right, well, you know, Arena in 2022, am I right? I am floored that they did not print this as at least a 4/6, and they actually pushed it down to a 3/6, such that you cannot play a 5 mana 3/6 in today's Arena. Are you going to be holding a dragon sometimes? Sometimes. You're not going to have the dragons
most of the time. Most of the time you're going to be holding a dragon.
So, well, it's also very class dependent, right? It's like very class dependent. So yeah, like this is just a pretty fair card. It's crazy. Like in today's Arena as well. Like even if this didn't have a tag, it was just like, oh, 5 mana 3/6 that dealt 4 damage onto the board. You're like, okay, that's pretty fair. You know, that's like kind of all right. I'm very surprised. Yeah. And then once you put this qualifier, you know, this requirement for the battle cry, it's just not that good, man.
Yeah. This is gonna be deck dependent because the battle cry is so important. So if you have a lot of dragons in your deck, this is gonna be significantly better potentially. And on the converse, if you don't have many dragons in your deck at all, this is unpickable. So you'll know. Like, you'll know how many dragons you have in your deck. But this is kind of the average of what we expect to see in this upcoming meta for the value, which is around a C.
I'm shocked that this is, like, something that they printed. Like, this seems like it should have been 3 years ago, you know, at least.
Yep. So, yeah. It's a C-level card. Next up, we have our 2 other Hunter cards that are both C-level. Again, C-level means it's a tiny bit better than a Yeti. It's not a very exciting card, but it's not going to tank your deck at all. Not going to grab you those wins. Okay, here we go. So the first one is Pet Collector, 5 mana 3/3, Battlecry. Summon a beast from your deck that costs 5 mana or less. You just kind of think about what you're summoning. It's probably like around a 3/3's worth of stuff, most likely, depending on what you have in your deck. It could be more, it could be less. There'll be random situations in which you happen to no longer have beasts in your deck for whatever reason, right? Remember, it's a dragon meta. You're going to have a lot of dragons, so that means you'll have a little less beasts than you're used to. But yeah, for a 5 mana card, it kind of needed to do stuff. And this one does put out a decent amount of stats, but it's very unclear what it's actually doing.
Okay, because look, you already get a 3/3, which means you don't need that much stats in order for this to be like worth it. So you can manipulate it a little bit. This is obviously going to be a card in which, if you're deep into your draft, the score is going to change pretty significantly. But like I said, you don't need a truckload of stats from whatever you pull out to make it worth it, right? It's like, if you get a 3/4 from it, you're like, oh, okay, you know, that's fine. So basically, a standard 3-drop from it. If you get a standard 3-drop from it,
you're at a C.
Fine.
And that's what you should expect.
Is that an average-ish card? Yeah, it is. That's where we're at.
And finally, we have, not finally, but the other hunter card that is a C, and the last hunter card is Dragonbane Shot. Dragonbane Shot is 2 mana, deal 2 damage. Honorable Kill. Add a Dragonbane Shot to your hand. So, 2 mana, deal 2 damage. Again, we keep saying this: 3 mana, deal 3 damage, 2 mana, deal 2 damage. They're not great, they're a little anti-tempo, but it's initiative, right? 2 mana, deal 2 damage is much better than 3 mana, deal 3 damage. And when you add an Honorable Kill to it, it's good that it triggers. The problem is that the only thing that the Honorable Kill does is allow you to use this card again. Because this card is not a great card, getting it again is just guaranteeing that you get another not great card. Like, you'd rather like draw a card or like discover a card or something. So yeah, like it's fine. I'll take it over a Yeti. It solves problems. But it's not special.
Nope.
All right. Now we're going to go on to Mage. Mage has 2 C tier cards. And if you notice, we haven't talked about Mage yet. This is the first time we're talking about Mage, which means it's not a good time for Mage in this mini set. Not getting a lot of stuff. So the first Mage card that is coming in is Drakefire Amulet. It is a 10 mana fire spell that is tradable. Thank God, this tradable is so important. And its text is: discover 2 dragons, summon them. So, all those great battle cries that these dragons have, you don't get them.
Yeah, look, the tradable really, really saves this card. And by save, I mean,
Makes it playable.
Makes it playable. Basically, all the dragons are battle cry, and for the ones with persistent effects, great. There's not like...
There's not a lot of
them. There's not a ton of them, and it's also just like, okay, well, you have also just spent all of your mana. Mm-hmm. So if you were thinking of, for example, one of the dragons that we're going to talk about, you know what? Do you want to just introduce that dragon?
All right, let's introduce the legendary dragon that's coming in from Mage. This is also a C, same tier. We're like right above a Yeti. It is Haleh, Matron Protectorate. This is an 8 mana 4/12 dragon. And it says, after you cast the spell, deal 4 damage randomly split among all enemies, including the hero.
So look, I mean, it's a Flame Waker, but a lot more expensive and clunky. And of course, this one can go face, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad. So yeah, you could like get this, I guess. You could get other stuff. You could just get a huge pile of stats, but remember what I said, for 10 mana, you need a lot of stats, and not just stats that do something. Even with something like, what was that 10 mana taunt? Colossus, right? You had a giant taunt that spawned another giant taunt, and unless you had sort of like some sort of polymorph effect or whatever, it was a just sticky body on the board. It protected you, so even though it didn't have initiative, it still did something to impact the board. Here, you could get like, I don't know, some big bodies, right? You could even get like what would be a high roll, like an 8/8 plus a 4/12. Yep. And I'm not even talking about the 4/12 that has a persistent effect, like just an 8/8 and a 4/12, right? Like, you found the Ysera, and you also found the Alexstrasza, but you're missing their battle cry, so you get some stats. But man, 10 mana, even just to summon that these days, it could be enough if you're in no danger, but if you're in any sort of danger...
You're probably in danger.
You're probably in danger. That's not good enough. Like, you can't just be summoning those things.
They don't even have taunts.
Yeah. There are no taunts these days. You better find the evasive dragon. Yeah. You better find that,
or like that. Rush ones, right? Like, even a Dragon Queen. Even a Onyxia. Without Whelps, it's still 8/8 Rush.
But once again, 10 mana.
Yep.
What are the 10 mana things you're used to?
Box,
right? something like survival of the fittest for Druid, but that's like very different. That's Druid. Everything's very different there, but here it just is a bit underwhelming. And yes, this is something that chat is pointing out. It's like, well, at least it's tradable. Yes, thankfully it is.
If it's not tradable, it's not C. It's like D. It's not like a little worse if it's not tradable. It's a lot worse if it's not tradable.
Yes. So yeah, it's good. Like that it's tradable.
Yeah,
but
the tradable makes
I'm not drafting it high. It's just like the standard for 10 mana spells is really, really high now.
Like, because remember, like what Merps keeps emphasizing, there's no flexibility. You can't like also ping something or deal damage to something. You have a turn in which you can't taunt, you have no initiative, and you can't remove anything, and then you have to survive. It's rough. Like you're just not gonna. This is just a dead card. Like so often, even at 10 mana. Like people are thinking, like, oh, I can just play when I get to 10 mana, and then I'll have all this stuff. No, this is not a box. You can't just play it. You usually won't be able to play it. It's usually a dead card that you just trade away. But like if you are in a position where you can play it, then it becomes powerful.
Yeah. And once again, it's still a C. Like it's not. I know we're trashing over a Yeti.
Yeah, we trash on everything C tier and below because we're basically trying to say like, on average, you shouldn't be picking these cards over like as one of your 3 options, right? Like on average,
right?
But you will end up with many cases in which this is the best card you're offered,
right? Like you're going to end up with quite a few C cards in your deck, just out of necessity,
and they don't like lose you the game or anything.
We're just trying to say don't prioritize this card.
Yeah.
But you will draft this a decent amount. It's by no means an actual trash card, even though we are trashing on it a little bit here. But
I feel like people are going to rate this all over the place. Like some people are going to think this is like a top tier card, and other people are going to think this is unplayable. But it's in the middle. Okay. Next one is the other legendary, which is a priest card. It is Mida, Pure Light, 6 mana, 4/6, Divine Shield, Lifesteal, Death Rattle, shuffle a fragment into your deck, and resummons Mida when drawn. Not much to say here. It's just a stat thing with healing, and then some % chance of getting it revived. Pretty straightforward. It's better than a Yeti. Not much better than a Yeti, though. You can see that the stats are, like, okay.
Good. It's fine.
And is it finally? Yeah, finally, for C to end our Cs, we have Spirit Mount, which is a Shaman buff. I don't see that often. And Shaman buffs are always a little weird. This one is 2 mana, and it is a common one. It says, give a minion +1/+2, and spell damage +1. When it dies, summon a Spirit Raptor. If you remember the mounts, you just get the Spirit Raptor is a 1/2 with spell damage +1. Same thing.
Okay. Just having a buff is nice. This just, unfortunately, doesn't exactly do enough. But the spell damage is handy to just like have as well, right? You buff something. A C is fine. If you guys like it a little bit better, I'm not gonna argue with you on that.
I think if anything, you like it a little less, because it's like
a little bit more and a little bit less. This is just like, this is fine. It's okay.
I think it's towards the top end of what I would give it. It's still like anti-tempo immediately quite a bit if you don't use the spell damage on the same turn. And that 1/2 Raptor is probably not doing much at the time it comes out. But that's a lot of stuff, right? Like, it does do spell damage, it does give initiative, it does potentially save your minion, and then it has a death rattle on it. So yeah, it's a pickable card. You pick it around where a Yeti is. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the one D+ card that exists. D+, it means it's a tiny bit below a Yeti. But again, Yetis are fine in your deck. You don't really want to be drafting them, but if you have to, you're not like, oh no, a Yeti. This is Smokescreen. Smokescreen is 8 mana. Draw 5 cards. Trigger any death rattles drawn. So Sprint now is 6 mana, draw 5 cards. This one is for 2 more mana. You trigger any death rattles you draw. You're drawing 5 cards. This card is going to be better or worse depending on what death rattles you have, obviously. It's going to swing quite a bit based on that. But ultimately, what you're looking for with this card is a deck that needs card draw and can survive until then. And then it does what it does, right? It gives you the card draw.
Why isn't this tradable? This would be the perfect tradable card. Tradable would go so well with this, as in it would make it so much better, obviously. Because there's like very little in between, right? It's just like how I was talking about that warrior, +2/+1 and rush card. I'm like, why does this have tradable? And here I'm just like, God, I wish this actually had tradable.
Yeah. Sprint only draws 4 cards. My bad.
So, yeah, it is what it is. This doesn't have tradable. I wish it did, but incredibly clunky. Could win you a game though. Could win you a game or two because really we all have those games. Yeah, we all have those games in which you're just kind of at a stalemate. Both people have run out of fuel, but you guys are still relatively healthy. Both of you guys are at like 19 health and 21 health, but you guys are running out of stuff. All right, play your smokescreen, and then you just win the game.
Yep. Now we're going to move on to the D cards. The D cards are bad. They're going to lose you some games, but you're going to pick up some of these because they're better than the F tier cards. So try to avoid these. These are the cards, whether we shit on them or not, like they should be pretty obviously bad. And if you think that they're good, I don't know. We'll talk more about it. Maybe some of these are confusing, but there's not a lot of D cards usually, especially these days. And you really should be avoiding these cards. So the first one, let's just get it out of the way. It's a neutral legendary. It is Kazakusan, and it is an 8 mana 8/8 dragon. Battle cry: if all minions in your deck are dragons, craft a custom deck of treasures. I don't know what any of that means, but your deck is not going to only be dragons, so it's just an 8 mana 8/8.
So the custom treasures are dual treasures.
Oh my god. Okay. Whatever. This is an 8 mana 8/8 in the arena. Next up, we have that last mage card. This is the bad mage card as opposed to the other okay-ish mage cards. This is Deep Breath. 5 mana, fire spell. Deal 1 damage to a minion and its neighbors. Improved by the number of other spells in your hand. You will not have that many other spells in your hand. It's not dealing that much damage. It's still doing something, right? It's not like F. It's not like doing nothing. Like, if you just hold on to it for a while, as you should, you may get to a point where you have like 2 spells in your hand, maybe, right? Depends on what the rest of your deck is doing. But yeah, I find it hard to imagine this card ever being actually good, no matter what kind of a deck you have. Like, you just can't have that many spells in a deck. They're not going to offer it to you, and it'll be really clunky for you to have.
Do you know what are the spells in 2022? Minions.
Yes.
Minions are spells. Like, what is a Knight Captain but a spell, right? What is a Bunker Sergeant but a spell? Like, they're more spells than minions. They're spells that happen to leave behind a body at the same time. So minions are the new spells.
Yep. Alright, next up, Stormwind Avenger. This is potentially tricky. Maybe you think it's an okay card. It's not an okay card. It's a 3 mana 1/5 Paladin card. After you cast a spell on this minion, it gains +2 attack. Okay, if it gains +2 attack, it's a 3/5. That is like okay. Like, that's good for a 3-drop, but you're doing it after the turn because you have to cast a spell on it. It's like, even if you trigger it, which is not that easy, it's like, okay. You're unlikely to trigger it in most games.
Yeah, this is like if someone told you, it's like, oh, hey, there's this great place. They're selling really, really cheap fax machines. And you're just like, wait a second. Like that sounds like it's like that's cool and everything, but do I really want a fax machine? Like sometimes I might, maybe I could get a cheap fax machine, and like sometimes you want to buff this, but like, do I really want to gain that advantage? Like just to have this?
No.
A lot of times you have other stuff you want to buff, right? Even when you have a buff and have a choice, so it's not even like do I have a choice of whether or not I can buff it, or do I have the Blessing of Kings? Do I have the whatever? It's like, oh, do I want to buff this? Yeah, it becomes a 3/5, but I got this other thing with Divine Shield, and that's better. So yeah, you can make that fax machine like a lot cheaper, but I don't know if you even want that.
Mm-hmm. Next is a priest card. It is Light Maul Netherdrake. Again, we're in the D categories. Do not pick these unless you absolutely have to. It's a 4-mana 4/4 dragon. Battlecry for holding a holy and a shadow spell. Deal 3 damage to all other minions. Again, you're unlikely to be holding 2 spells, period. Maybe you can wait for them, but the chances that one's a holy and one's a shadow, kind of low. Deal 3 damage to all other minions. Good. Really good for this card, but like, this is a constructed card.
Some people are thinking of the scenario where you have the 5/5 taunt that has the death rattle, draw both, and you're like, well, I could just play this after that, and it's like, well, now we're just introducing more. It's like we're throwing more things up in there. It's like, what if unicorns existed? And then it's like, oh, what if I were friends with like the Rock and a unicorn existed? Like, I don't know, dude. We're getting a little bit too far.
This is just a 4-mana 4/4 dragon, and that is not good.
Yeah.
Next up is this is actually kind of interesting. It's SI7 Smuggler in Rogue. 3-mana 1/3. Battlecry. Summon a random minion with cost equal to the amount of SI7 cards you've played this game, which is probably 0, but it could be 1. And even at 0, it's gonna be like a wisp or something. And if
wait, does this count itself?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it counts. Does it count itself? If it counts itself, then this is rated wrong by us. We need to change it. Chat, let us know if it counts itself. I've been thinking it does not count itself.
I would just ask on the spot because it's something I just thought of.
Yeah, I never even thought of it. Okay, chat thinks it probably doesn't. I don't think it does either. So let's say it doesn't for now. And if it doesn't, then it's a 1/3 with a probably 1/1. But that 1/1 could be a 2/1 or a 1/3 maybe if you play it later on. And yeah, I mean that's not good, but not game losing.
All right. So assuming that it's not, yeah, it's pretty trash.
But it's not F. It's like just an understated 3-drop. Like, is it better than a 3-mana 3/3? No, but it's close.
Assuming that you have played something.
No. Even if you haven't played it, like you get a 1/1 with a 1/3 because you're still summoning a 0-mana thing. Like you're summoning a wisp.
Oh yeah, right.
Like it's not just a 3-mana 1/3. It's a 3-mana 1/3 with at least a 1/1. So it still does something. That's why it's a D and not an F. But yeah, don't pick it. Alright, now we're on to our F plus card. There is a card that is F plus. Very bad, but it does do something, and we felt bad giving it an F.
You passed it.
Did I pass it? I don't really want to look at it. Wait, what is this? Oh, it's a priest card. Okay, here it is. Horn of Rathion. It is a priest common spell. It is not a holy spell, not a shadow spell, by the way. Draw a minion. If it is a dragon, summon 2/2/1 Whelps with Rush. So if the randomly drawn arena minion out of your deck is a dragon, you get 2/2/1 Whelps with Rush, and then this card becomes like okay. But it's not going to be a dragon the vast majority of times, and then you just spend 3 mana to draw a minion. And that's bad, but that's not like the worst, Like it's still a card. You can like cycle it. Like it's a thing still, even though it's a very bad thing. F plus.
Yeah, It's a F plus. That's fine.
Yeah, don't think like, oh my god, I have 6 dragons in the deck and like, 20 minions. That's a pretty good chance. No, 6 divided by 20, like, do the math. It's still a terrible chance for this to do anything. Just like, don't pick this card.
And 6 is high.
Yeah, I mean 6 is high, but like, if you have a dragon deck, right?
Even if you have a dragon deck, yeah, sure.
Bracing Cold is the next card. These are Fs now. Like, this is a Shaman card. 2 mana Frost Spell. Restore 5 health to your hero. Reduce the cost of a random spell in your hand by 2. So 1, you need a spell in your hand. 2, you're using up a card. You're just like throwing a card away. And you're throwing the mana away too to bank, which is not necessarily a positive thing. And in exchange, you gain 5 health to your hero. No. Finally, we have Curse of Agony. Curse of Agony is a shadow spell for Warlock. It is 1 mana. Shuffle 3 Agonies into the opponent's deck. They deal fatigue damage when drawn. No.
All right. Those are the cards.
That's Onyxia's Lair. Like, as usual with these mini sets that come with a rotation, the rotation is going to matter a lot more than the mini set itself. And so, what you're going to see a lot of is frickin' Twin Tyrant. It's Ysera. It's Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. It's now Raid Boss Onyxia added on top of that mess. And you're going to see all the Explorers. Emerald, Primordial, Bronze, Azure. And they're all going to run around discovering these legendary dragons. This is going to make your life hell. That's the meta we're kind of going to step into. And then you have a bunch of cards that could make it a little more interesting. Because it's a mini set.
Yep. So look. When this hits tomorrow, dive in, feel free to just experience the glory of the Clown Fiesta that will be Arena. You're going to have your lows, as in a lot of the cards that you draft are not going to be great. You're going to have some highs, unfortunately, on your opponent's side as well. There's really, really premium top-end cards. And I'm just hoping that Blizzard actually looks at the state of Arena that's going to come up and finally confronts the issue of discovering stuff. Because I think we are going to see a discover meta that is the worst that it has ever been. And people are going to get really, really annoyed. Ysera, I would say, already pushed people over the edge, but by now people are just tired of it. It's like the reason why you don't really hear about it as much on Arena HS isn't because people are just like, oh, I changed my mind on Ysera. It's just like, okay, well, after the 17th thread about it, I think the mods are just like, okay, we'll just stop anyways, and people are tired of hearing about it. We're gonna have the same thing with Onyxia, and then we might bring up discussions about Ysera.
Dragon Queen Alexstrasza is going to come back in a discussion.
Yeah, DQA is going to cause a lot of problems, and it's going to be Discover that is the main culprit. And you can ban stuff, and for a lot of the stuff that they have banned, that actually does solve the problem. Like, you ban Watch Post, that's great. Were there ways to discover it, to generate it? Yeah, they weren't as problematic, right?
And you couldn't do it on 3.
Yes. And here, well, there was. There was the Serpent Shrine portal.
Oh, remember? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was hilarious. That was a mega watch post. But, I mean, that was super random. Here, the vast majority of the problems are not from the draft. They are from being discovered. So much so that, unlike in many previous instances, if you ask me, and I think if you ask the majority of people, would you rather be able, it's like, what would you rather leave in the game? Being able to draft these giant dragons, or be like, banning that and then being able to discover it? Yeah, it's like, let people draft these. You're not going to draft them that often. And then in those instances, if they're drafting it, assuming they don't get the God draft and get multiple legendaries and have this, they're only playing like one a game when they do have it. And remember, that's not super often. Meanwhile, if you're able to discover it, like you can have one run in which you are just bullying people by playing multiple high-end premium dragons per game. That's just a thing. It's very, very possible. So I don't know if this is something Blizzard is already aware of and working on, but they have no answer to. Hopefully it's not something that they just don't care about. But goddamn, I think, like we're going to have a very, very serious conversation about this very soon, and the arena community is just going to be very frustrated by the discover problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been there, but it's going to get significantly worse.
And they're asking for it. There's a reason Descent of Dragons hasn't been in the meta in forever, even though they've cycled through all the other ones. Because it was a problem, and they got rid of it, and everybody was super happy. And now they're going to be back. I remember when we were doing this with Kel and Dreads, the like ranking of all the best cards in arena history. This was. Well, did this win #1? I remember I was trying to make the case for it for #1. I forget if it ultimately
was
won.
#1.
Yeah, okay. So Twin Tyrant was #1. Literally, like the most OP card in arena history.
Well, the way that we categorize it as well, it's like
impact, OP impact.
Impact.
Yeah.
It wasn't just because then it would be something like Godfrey, right? If you were just talking about power, it would be something like Sunkeeper Tarim or Godfrey.
Sorry, did you mean Raid Boss Onyxia?
Oh yeah, Raid Boss Onyxia here. So yeah, like Twin Tyrant won, and now Twin Tyrant is returning in a meta in which it's still going to be very impactful, but it's coming back into a meta in which the top end is even more top end. Yep. You're going to have like more ways to just be annoying and stall. Now, that doesn't mean, like, mid-range decks can't win. And remember, even these days, the majority of your games, they look fairly normal.
I think we're in a weird meta these days, though, because Demon Hunter is so good.
Yes.
And if Demon Hunter falls off in this next expansion, which it may, because Demon Hunters don't do anything with dragons.
They don't do anything with dragons. They lose stuff like Cycle of Hatred, It's very, very different.
Yeah, so like if that falls out, the meta could just totally like flip.
Yeah, it could. So I don't know. I'm gonna play. I'm gonna have fun. But I can see it get annoying pretty quickly. But I encourage all of you guys to just have as much fun as possible.
Yeah. Here's the other thing with Twin Tyrant coming back. There's literally basically like one set that's still back besides Descent of Dragons, and that's the current set, the Altaric Valley set. None of the other sets are modern post-core sets. And so the power levels are very low for this upcoming meta. Like, on average, they're very low. And that means that stuff like Twin Tyrant is going to dominate even harder than it normally would dominate.
Yep. Getting rid of Skullman's Academy is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Skullman's Academy was up and down, just a powerhouse in terms of so much initiative, so much sustain, so much card draw. Mage Scribe being a common, okay, everybody has cards. Smug Senior and what was it, that the Murloc Rush?
Yeah.
Okay, initiative, sustain, Broom, okay, even more initiative. Skullman's, and all of the studies as well, right? Yep. Like, just so much more discover. Skullman's is, whenever it shows up, it will severely impact any meta that has Skullmance in it. Because if you look at the cards up and down that roster, that set, it's such a impactful thing for Arena because it just hits on so many of the powerful Arena fundamental things, and that's gone. Yeah. And you might remember Ungoro as like, oh, this could hold up, kind of.
No.
And the answer is like, the good cards can still kind of hold up.
Primordial Drake is a B.
Right.
Just wanted to highlight that Primordial Drake is a B. I don't know what Basilisk is right now, but I'm pretty sure it's a B also. Like, these were dominant cards back in the day. And now they're Bs, which were like, they're good cards, pick them.
Yeah. So, if you're thinking about the Meteors and the Crackling Razor Mauls, yes, those are still good. As in, the top cards are still very good. Go back, look at Ungoro, and look at the entire list of cards, and I think cards. You'll see. You're like, oh boy, this is ugly. Like, this is just bad. So yes, the top end cards are still top end. Crackling Razor Maul, Steed, Meteor, they're still.
Oh yeah, Steed is back.
Steed is back. But the vast majority of cards are not good. And that will make stuff like Ysera and stuff like Onyxia even more backbreaking.
Yep, exactly. Like, they didn't put the other sets in. Like, Ashes of Outlands was the other, like, big set. Also had a lot of Demon Hunter stuff in it. And then the sets from this year, like, not 2022, but, like, the year of the whatever we're in Hearthstone right now, which is Barons and United in Stormwind. So yeah, I mean, I have very low hopes for this upcoming meta of being anything resembling enjoyable for me. And I thought the previous meta, even though there was no button and had its problems, was like okay. Like, I was still enjoying Arena, I was still playing Arena. This upcoming rotation, I don't know, maybe it'll magically work without the button, but I think even if they had the button, it's just going to end up being unenjoyable. Because of Descent of Dragons and Twin Tyrant and the what do you call those things? The Explorers discovering all these legendary dragons that now exist in even more advanced forms. Like, the last time we had, it was just such a big jump when the new Ysera came out. In the power levels of dragons, and that was not with Descent of Dragons too. So I'm not looking forward to this upcoming meta past the exploring new cards phase, but maybe they'll do something with it. Maybe they'll change how discovering these legendary dragons work. Maybe they'll at least ban Twin Tyrant finally, and that'll help a bit. But my prediction is it is gonna get ugly.
All right. Well, that's cool. Anything else?
No.
I'm ready to end this.
Yeah, let's send it out. I want to give a shout out to, I don't know, everybody, our patrons at patreon.com/grinandgoat for supporting us. We will give a full shout out on the next episode. I just got back I'm still technically on vacation, but we will. We'll give a proper shout out in the next episode. I want to shout out the mods who have been excellent as usual, and all the viewers here. We actually have a good audience for a random Monday night stream where we're just talking.
All right.
That's it.